Let's start off by crediting South Florida. They played with the appropriate level of force and competitiveness. Really did a great job.
No one in America was ready for chaos on this scale. Yet the entire landscape of women's basketball now feels like it's teetering on the edge of a cliff, with the league's own golden goose poised to send it over. For months, fans watched a quiet war simmer in plain sight, but what festered behind closed doors was infinitely more toxic: billion-dollar TV deals, clashing egos, historic jealousy, and a breaking point that has finally snapped. The whispers swirling through arenas aren't about a routine trade request or a few extra rest days. The word echoing through locker rooms and executive suites is that Caitlin Clark may be ready to pull the plug and walk away from the WNBA entirely. And the most chilling part? This didn't leak from some fringe blog. It slipped from the very voices that once tried to hold her down. Murmurs trace back to the Team USA coaching circle itself. To understand how the most famous player in the sport could contemplate leaving the league she helped resurrect, you have to look at the implosion inside the players' union, a saga of greed, sabotage, and a young prodigy realizing she holds every card in the deck. Yet this storm didn't begin with contract disputes. The bad blood was poured months earlier by the very establishment meant to protect her. The groundwork for this fallout was laid before Clark even stepped onto a pro court, through the frosty posture of Team USA coach Cheryl Reeve. When the Olympic roster dropped and Clark's name was nowhere to be found, officials framed it as a routine basketball decision. Insufficient experience, veterans rewarded for loyalty, a rookie not yet proven. But fans across the United States saw something else entirely, a decision dripping with unmistakable spite, a message sent loud and clear that the old guard wasn't ready to share the spotlight. Reeve carried a well-known pattern of thinly veiled jabs at the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, at one point flat-out urging fans to slow down the hysteria and implying the league was already filled with stars worthy of the spotlight. When reporters pushed the Team USA camp about the undeniable ratings surge and sold-out arenas Clark could deliver in Paris, the answers felt chillingly cold. They told the world they didn't need her, that gold was inevitable without her, and that the national team would not become a marketing spectacle to satisfy a wave of new fans. This was never just about a roster decision. It rang out as a calculated warning from the WNBA's old guard to the sport's emerging face. They wanted her grounded. They wanted her to understand that no matter how many millions tuned in to watch Logo 3s, she still sat at the bottom of their rigid hierarchy. But sidelining the sport's brightest star carried consequences. The backlash was swift and merciless. While officials congratulated themselves for protecting veteran prestige, the brutal reality of Clark's rookie season spiraled into a nightmare on hardwood. What should have been a triumphant arrival instead became a frightening physical trial. This went far beyond tough defense or rookie initiation. It felt targeted, intentional, and dangerously over the line. Defenders hunted her. There were blindside collisions, elbows thrown high, and violent shoves that slammed her onto the floor as opposing benches erupted in celebration. Meanwhile, whistles stayed silent, permitting a level of punishment no other marquee player would endure. It became painfully clear that an unspoken bounty shadowed her every move, fueled by veterans enraged that a rookie was eclipsing their relevance. They resented the charter flights. They loathed the packed arenas flooded with number 22 jerseys. And they despised that the league's financial future now seemed to rest on the shoulders of a 22-year-old from Iowa. Locker rooms across the league simmered with bitterness, driven by legends unwilling to surrender the torch. And through it all, the players' union, the very body meant to safeguard athletes and ensure a secure workplace, remained eerily silent. They did not denounce the targeting. They did not demand fair officiating. And they certainly did not defend the player whose presence was single-handedly elevating their paychecks. The hypocrisy of that silence detonated just weeks ago when the WNBA, the players' union, made the stunning decision to opt out of its collective bargaining agreement, a move that sent shockwaves across the entire sports landscape. For years, players had pushed for higher salaries, stronger benefits, and a larger share of league revenue. Now, fueled almost entirely by the tidal wave of viewers, sponsors, and blockbuster television deals driven by the Caitlin Clark effect, the union suddenly possessed the leverage to demand a complete financial overhaul. They are calling for millions more in the salary cap, guaranteed luxury travel, and a significant cut of the massive broadcasting windfall. But the bitter irony is impossible to ignore. Union leaders and veteran players are actively wielding Clark's record-shattering viewership to negotiate enormous paydays while refusing to acknowledge her impact or protect her on the court. They are, in effect, holding the league hostage for a slice of a pie they did not bake. The audacity of tearing up their contract to demand historic wealth, while members continue taking cheap shots at the very player generating that wealth, is staggering. It reveals a level of resentment and greed that has fractured the league behind closed doors. Veterans want the Caitlin Clark money, but they want the Caitlin Clark phenomenon erased from the story, pretending this financial boom is a natural evolution rather than the direct result of one player altering the gravity of women's sports forever. That arrogant strategy collapsed the moment they realized Clark is not bound to their ecosystem. Unlike veterans who spend decades fighting for scraps and relying on the WNBA for survival, Clark operates in an entirely different financial stratosphere. Her rookie contract pays roughly $76,000 a year, pocket change compared to the tens of millions she earns through global endorsements with Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm. She does not need the WNBA to survive, to thrive, or to remain a global icon. In truth, playing in the league may be the worst financial and physical decision she could make right now. She risks serious injury nightly against resentful veterans, flies coast to coast into hostile arenas, and endures an unrelenting media storm, all for a base salary that barely covers her security costs. League executives are finally confronting a terrifying realization. She holds all the leverage. If she decides a physical punishment, union drama, and blatant disrespect are not worth it, she can walk away. This is no idle threat. It is a very real possibility that has sent panic to the corridors of power. The moment she exits, sold-out arenas disappear, billion-dollar TV deals face brutal renegotiations, and the massive salary cap the union is fighting for evaporates overnight. That fear intensified with the aggressive rise of alternative opportunities. Rumors are spreading at lightning speed about a new unrivaled 3-on-3 league spearheaded by stars like Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, a privately funded venture recruiting elite talent with multi-million-dollar payouts for only a few months of off-season play. It represents the perfect escape hatch. Reports suggest record-breaking offers have already reached Clark's management, figures that make her WNBA rookie contract look laughable. Meanwhile, overseas leagues in Europe and Asia, long known for paying women's basketball stars millions, are watching the chaos unfold with quiet delight. They know that if the WNBA continues alienating its biggest draw, an international club could swoop in with a guaranteed fortune and treat her like royalty, free from the toxic drama of veteran jealousy. Why remain in a league where the union profits from her presence while allowing players to target her? Why play for coaches and executives who seem to harbor deep grudges? The answer is becoming unavoidable. She shouldn't. And according to chilling whispers from the highest levels of women's basketball, she may finally be ready to pull the trigger on an exit strategy. This is the moment the narrative reaches boiling point, and where supposed confirmation from the Team USA camp threatened to shatter the sport's balance of power. As union negotiations spiraled into chaos and the threat of Clark bolting for a rival league grew impossible to ignore, the tone from the establishment shifted with breathtaking speed. The very same coaches, voices tied closely to Cheryl Reeve's circle, who once minimized her impact and defended leaving her off the Olympic roster, suddenly began scrambling to rewrite the narrative. Internal leaks painted a picture of outright panic inside league and national team offices. Back-channel conversations reportedly acknowledged that Clark's camp was deadly serious about walking away if the league failed to restore order, ensure her protection, and compel the union to show even a shred of respect. The fear of losing her exposed a fracture in the establishment's armor, a panicked admission that they had pushed too far, and that resignation talk was not online rumor, but a legitimate strategy under review by her legal and management teams. They realized too late that by allowing the union to implode and veterans to police the court with unchecked hostility, they had handed Clark the perfect justification to walk away and let the WNBA's fragile financial structure crumble in her absence. The coaching camp that once embodied veteran supremacy was suddenly forced to confront a brutal truth. Without number 22, the entire ship sinks. The strategic brilliance of her silence cannot be overstated. By saying nothing publicly while her representatives flex unprecedented leverage behind closed doors, Clark has effectively neutralized the veteran power structure. Players who spent the season throwing elbows and fueling media narratives are now confronting a harsh reality. Their long-awaited pay raises depend entirely on keeping the woman they resent satisfied. The union, which believed it could strong-arm the league with strike threats, is awakening to the realization that a strike is meaningless if the main attraction has already exited the stage. Caitlin doesn't need public outbursts. She doesn't need to plead her case to the media about officiating failures. And she certainly doesn't need to beg for respect from players who are quietly terrified of the shadow she casts. All she has to do is glance at her watch, stare at the multi-million-dollar offers spread across her kitchen table from rival leagues, and offer the slightest shrug. That quiet possibility of resignation is the ultimate checkmate. It pressures the league to tighten flagrant foul rules. It demands that referees finally step in and protect her. And it forces the most bitter veterans to swallow their pride and flash smiles to cameras. As the dust begins to settle from this seismic power struggle, one truth stands unshaken. The old guard tried to break the rookie. They tried to flip the system and claim the profits for themselves. But they fatally underestimated the calm, overwhelming leverage of a superstar who doesn't actually need them. Whether she ultimately signs elsewhere or simply wields a threat to bend the WNBA to her will, the entire basketball world is locked in, watching in stunned silence. The balance of power has permanently shifted, and the veterans are about to learn what happens when you turn on the only force that ever transformed the league's future.